Friday evening hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut when Amanda burst through our front door, her heels clicking against the hardwood like gunshots. After 5 years of marriage, I'd learned to read the storm clouds in her expression, and tonight they were darker than usual. "We're going to the company dinner tonight," she announced, not asked. Her voice carried that familiar edge that made my stomach clench. "You're coming with me." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing insurance claims, the glamorous life of an adjuster. "Tonight? You didn't mention anything about a dinner?" "I'm mentioning it now." She was already heading upstairs, her investment firm blazer slung over her shoulder. "Wear something simple, nothing flashy." I followed her to our bedroom, confused by the urgency. "What's the occasion? New client celebration?" Amanda paused at her closet, sighing in that way that made me feel like I'd asked her to explain quantum physics to a toddler. "They're announcing the new CEO tonight. This is important for my career, so I don't want you standing out." Standing out? What does that mean? She pulled out a black cocktail dress, the one that cost more than my monthly car payment. "It means exactly what it sounds like. Just blend in, okay? Don't draw attention to yourself." The words stung more than they should have. We'd been married 5 years, together for 7, and somehow I'd become the embarrassing accessory she had to manage at work functions. An hour later, we arrived at the Grand Meridian Hotel. The ballroom was elegant in that sterile corporate way, crystal chandeliers, pristine white tablecloths, and the kind of flower arrangements that screamed expense account. Amanda's co-workers were everywhere, a sea of tailored suits and practiced smiles. The moment we walked through the doors, Amanda transformed. Her posture straightened, her smile became razor sharp, and she immediately started working the room like a politician at a fundraiser. "Amanda!" A tall woman with silver hair approached us. "So glad you could make it. The partners are eager to meet the new leadership." Amanda's eyes lit up with the kind of hunger I used to see when she looked at me. "Mrs. Patterson, I've been looking forward to this all week, the merger opportunities alone. And who's this?" Mrs. Patterson's gaze shifted to me with polite disinterest. "This is my husband," Amanda said quickly, then turned to me. "Stand behind everyone, okay? Don't make me look bad." The words hit me like a physical blow. Stand behind everyone. Don't make me look bad. In front of her colleague, in front of strangers. My own wife had just relegated me to the status of an inconvenient +1. "What?" The word escaped before I could stop it. Amanda's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "You're embarrassing me just standing next to me. Please, just stay in the background." I stared at her, stunned. "I'm your husband. Just do this for me, okay?" She was already dismissing me, turning back to Mrs. Patterson with that brilliant smile. "Now, about those quarterly projections." Humiliated and hollow, I moved toward the back of the room near the wall. From there, I watched my wife schmooze with executives, laugh at unfunny jokes, and pretend I didn't exist. The other spouses mingled freely, but I'd been banished to the shadows like some kind of social leper. The conversations around me blurred into white noise. Corporate buzzwords, fake laughter, the clink of champagne glasses. I felt like I was watching my marriage from the outside, seeing it clearly for the first time. When had I become someone Amanda was ashamed of? When had love turned into this cold transaction where I was the liability? "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the sound system. "If I could have your attention, please. We're about to announce our new CEO." The room fell silent. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Amanda pushed through the crowd, positioning herself near the front with the other ambitious climbers, all vying for the best view of their new boss. The ballroom doors opened with theatrical timing. A woman in her early 40s walked in, and the air itself seemed to change. She was elegant without trying, powerful without posturing. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style that somehow looked more expensive than Amanda's elaborate updo. She wore a navy blue suit that fit like it had been tailored by angels, and when she moved, the entire room seemed to orbit around her. Amanda rushed forward, practically trampling a junior associate in her eagerness to make first contact. Ms. But the CEO barely glanced at her. Instead, her eyes swept the room with the methodical precision of a scanner, searching for something. Or someone. When her gaze found me in the back corner, everything stopped. Time, breathing, my heartbeat. She walked past everyone. Past the partners, past the senior associates, past my wife who stood there with her mouth half open, and came straight toward me. The crowd parted like she was Moses and they were the Red Sea. She stopped directly in front of me, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "I never stopped searching for you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. The room was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the kitchen 3 floors down, but I barely noticed because I was staring into the face of Saddie Mitchell, the woman I'd loved more than life itself 22 years ago. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. "Saddie." "Yes," she whispered, crying now. "It's me." Amanda was pushing through the crowd like a linebacker, her face a mask of confusion and growing panic. "What's happening here? Who is this?" Saddie finally looked at Amanda, and when she did, her expression shifted from joy to something colder. "I'm the CEO of this company." "Yes, I know that, but—" Amanda gestured frantically between us. "How do you know my husband?" "This man," Saddie said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "is my first love." Amanda's face drained of all color. "What?" The memories crashed over me like a tsunami. 22 years ago, Saddie and I had been inseparable. College sweethearts who'd planned our entire future together. We were going to graduate, get married, build a life that would make all the romance novels jealous. But her parents had other plans. They disapproved of me, the scholarship kid from the wrong side of town, dating their daughter, who was destined for greatness. They'd forced her to move abroad for graduate school, and somehow, in the chaos of that separation, we'd lost contact. Both of us heartbroken, both of us convinced we'd never find love like that again. And we hadn't. "I searched for you for years," Saddie continued, her eyes never leaving mine. "I hired private investigators. I checked social media obsessively. I never married because I couldn't find anyone who made me feel the way you did." Amanda pushed between us like a referee breaking up a boxing match. "He's my husband." Saddie looked at Amanda, then back at me. "You're married to her?" I nodded, unable to find words. "Yes." Saddie's face fell. "Oh, you're married to him," she said to Amanda, but her tone had changed. It wasn't a question anymore. It was an accusation. "Yes, I am," Amanda said defensively. Saddie turned back to me. "Are you happy?" I looked at Amanda, who had just told me to hide behind everyone so I wouldn't embarrass her. Amanda, who treated me like a burden she had to manage. Amanda, who had spent the last 2 years making me feel like I was lucky she'd settled for me. Honestly, no. Amanda's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Everyone gasped, but Saddie's attention was laser-focused on Amanda now. "How do you treat him?" Saddie asked, her voice deadly quiet. That's private," Amanda stammered. "He just told me to stand behind everyone so I wouldn't embarrass her," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Saddie's face hardened into something that could cut glass. "You have this incredible man, and you treat him like that? You don't understand our relationship." "I understand perfectly," Saddie cut her off. "And I understand that your employment with this company is terminated, effective immediately." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, someone's drink hitting the floor. Amanda's face went from pale to green. "You can't do that." "Yes, I can, for unprofessional conduct and creating a hostile work environment." Saddie's voice carried the authority of someone who'd climbed to the top of the corporate ladder and wasn't afraid to use the view. Security will escort you out. This is insane! You can't fire me because of some college romance. I'm not firing you because of our past, Saddie said calmly. I'm firing you because anyone who would treat their spouse the way you just treated him has no place in my company. We value respect here. 2 security guards appeared as if summoned by magic. They flanked Amanda, who was now screaming about lawsuits and wrongful termination, and how this was all completely inappropriate. You're right, Saddie said, as the guards began escorting Amanda toward the exit. This is inappropriate. Your behavior toward your husband is completely inappropriate. As Amanda was dragged away, still shouting threats and demands, Saddie turned back to me. The hardness in her expression melted away, replaced by something softer but infinitely more complex. I know you're married, she said quietly, pulling a business card from her jacket. I respect that, but if you ever need anything at all, please call me. The card felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. The ride home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Amanda sat in the passenger seat, her face cycling through emotions like a broken traffic light, rage, humiliation, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. This is insane, she kept muttering. Completely insane. You can't just fire someone because of personal feelings. There are laws. There are procedures. I focused on driving, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white. Saddie's business card felt like it was burning a hole in my jacket pocket. Did you know? Amanda's voice cut through my thoughts like a blade. Did you know she was going to be there? Of course not. I haven't seen her in over 20 years. But you recognized her immediately. I couldn't deny that. The moment I'd seen Saddie walk into that ballroom, it was like the last 2 decades had evaporated. She looked different, more polished, more powerful. But those eyes were exactly the same, the eyes I'd dreamed about for years after she'd disappeared from my life. Yes, I recognized her. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more vulnerable than I'd heard it in years. Were you really that unhappy? The question hung in the air between us like smoke. I could have lied. I could have said it was the shock of seeing Saddie, that I didn't mean it, that everything was fine between us. But after what had happened tonight, after being told to hide behind everyone like some kind of embarrassing secret, I couldn't bring myself to cushion the blow. Yes, I said simply. I was. She started crying then. Not the angry tears she'd shed at the hotel, but quiet, broken sobs that made my chest ache despite everything. I didn't realize, she whispered. I didn't know I was making you feel that way. Amanda, I started, but she cut me off. No, let me finish. I've been so focused on my career, on making partner, on proving myself to everyone at that firm. I guess I forgot that I had to prove myself to you too. We pulled into our driveway, but neither of us moved to get out of the car. The porch light cast long shadows across the dashboard, and for a moment, we just sat there in the silence. What happens now? She asked. I thought about Saddie's card in my pocket. I thought about the way she'd looked at me, the way she'd defended me without hesitation. I thought about 22 years of wondering what if. But I also thought about Amanda, about the woman I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago, before the job consumed her, before I became an afterthought in her carefully orchestrated life. Was there any part of that woman left? Was there anything worth fighting for? I don't know, I admitted. I honestly don't know. The next morning, Amanda was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to see lawyers about wrongful termination. We need to talk when I get back. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen table, staring at Saddie's business card. The logo was embossed, expensive. Saddie Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. There was a cell phone number written in elegant handwriting on the back. I thought about calling her. I thought about it for 3 hours. Instead, I went to work. My job as an insurance adjuster wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. I investigated claims, talked to people on the worst days of their lives, and tried to help them rebuild. It wasn't the kind of career that impressed people at cocktail parties, but it mattered. At least, it used to feel like it mattered. "You look like hell," my colleague Dave said when I walked into the office. "Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel special." Rough night? I thought about trying to explain what had happened at the company dinner. How do you tell someone that your wife's new CEO turned out to be the love of your life from 2 decades ago? How do you explain that your marriage imploded in front of a room full of strangers? You could say that. Dave didn't push, which was one of the things I appreciated about him. We'd worked together for 3 years, and he had a gift for knowing when to talk and when to leave someone alone. I spent the day reviewing files, making phone calls, and trying not to think about Saddie. It didn't work. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was her calling. It never was. Amanda came home that evening looking like she'd been through a war. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged. She dropped her purse by the door and slumped onto the couch like her strings had been cut. "The lawyers say I don't have a case," she said without preamble. Apparently, CEOs have broad discretionary power when it comes to termination, especially for behavior they consider unprofessional. "I'm sorry." She looked at me with something that might have been surprise. "Are you? Really? I never wanted you to lose your job, Amanda. I just wanted you to stop treating me like I was something to be ashamed of." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I called my sister today, told her what happened." Amanda's sister lived in California. They talked maybe twice a year, usually during holidays or family emergencies. "What did she say?" "She said she wasn't surprised. She said she'd been wondering for years why I married someone I obviously didn't respect." The words hit harder than I'd expected. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. "She was right, wasn't she?" Amanda continued. "I didn't respect you. I don't know when it started or why, but somewhere along the way I stopped seeing you as my partner and started seeing you as an accessory. Something that looked good on paper but didn't really matter." I wanted to argue with her, to tell her she was being too hard on herself. But I couldn't, because she was right. "Why?" I asked. "What changed?" She thought about it for a long time. "I think I got scared. When I started at the firm, everyone there was so polished, so accomplished. Their spouses were doctors and lawyers and executives, and you were, an insurance adjuster." "A good man," she corrected. "An honest man who worked hard and loved me and didn't care about impressing anyone. But I cared. I cared so much about fitting in, about being accepted, that I started seeing your genuineness as a liability instead of a gift." We talked until almost midnight. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. Amanda told me about the pressure she felt at work, the constant need to prove herself in a male-dominated industry. I told her about the loneliness, the feeling of being married to someone who barely tolerated my existence. It was the most honest conversation we'd had since our wedding day. But honesty, I was learning, doesn't always fix things. Sometimes it just helps you see how broken they really are. 3 days passed before I called Saddie. I'd picked up the phone a dozen times, started dialing, then hung up before it could ring. What was I supposed to say? "Hi, it's me. The guy whose marriage you destroyed at a company dinner? Thanks for getting my wife fired. Want to grab coffee?" In the end, I kept it simple. "Saddie, it's me. I was hoping you'd call." Her voice was exactly as I remembered it, warm, intelligent, with just a hint of that laugh that used to make my heart skip beats. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better. Amanda lost her job." "I know. I'm sorry it came to that, but I meant what I said. The way she treated you was unacceptable. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, having driven there just to have somewhere private to make the call. She says the lawyers told her she doesn't have a case. She doesn't, but that's not why you called, is it? Saddie always had been direct. It was one of the things I'd loved about her in college. No games, no manipulation, just honest communication. No, it's not. Would you like to meet? Just to talk. I know this is complicated, but I'd really like to see you again. Properly this time. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it through the phone. Where? There's a coffee shop on 5th Street called The Grind. Do you know it? I did. It was small, quiet, the kind of place where you could have a private conversation without feeling like you were on display. Tomorrow at 2? I'll be there. After I hung up, I sat in my car for another 20 minutes, trying to process what I'd just done. I was about to meet with my ex-girlfriend, a woman I'd never stopped loving, if I was being honest with myself, while my marriage was hanging by a thread. But was it really hanging by a thread? Or was it already over, and I was just too afraid to admit it? That evening, Amanda and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She'd made pasta, nothing fancy, just spaghetti with marinara sauce. But it felt significant somehow, like she was trying to rebuild something between us, one small gesture at a time. I've been thinking, she said as we ate, about us, about what happens next. And I want to fight for this, for us. I know I messed up. God, I really messed up. But I love you. I forgot how to show it, but I do. The sincerity in her voice was heartbreaking. This was the Amanda I'd fallen in love with, the one who'd been buried under years of corporate ambition and social climbing. I love you too, I said, and I meant it. But love, I was learning, wasn't always enough. But? She asked, reading my expression. But I don't know if love is enough to fix what's broken between us. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Because of her. Because of Saddie. It's not just about Saddie. It's about us. About how we got to the point where you were ashamed to be seen with me. I was never ashamed of you. I was ashamed of myself. Of how small I felt next to all those people, how inadequate. And instead of dealing with those feelings, I took them out on you. We finished dinner in relative silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Afterward, Amanda went upstairs to take a bath, and I found myself standing in our living room, looking at the photos on the mantel. Our wedding day, our first anniversary, a vacation to the mountains 3 years ago when things between us had still been good. We looked happy in those pictures, young and hopeful and completely in love. When had that changed? When had we stopped being a team and started being strangers sharing a mortgage? I was still staring at the photos when Amanda came back downstairs in her robe, her hair damp from the bath. I know you're going to see her, she said quietly. I turned around, surprised. How did you? I know you. You've been carrying her business card around for 3 days, and you've had that look on your face. The same one you used to get when you were trying to decide whether to ask me out in college. We'd met at a mutual friend's party. I'd spent the entire evening working up the courage to talk to her, and she'd later told me she'd been waiting for me to make a move for hours. Amanda, it's okay. I think you need to see her. We both need to know where we stand. Are you sure? She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. No, I'm terrified, but I'd rather know the truth than spend the rest of our lives wondering what if. The next afternoon, I arrived at the Grind 15 minutes early and ordered a coffee I didn't want. The shop was exactly what I'd expected. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, the kind of place that attracted writers and students and people having important conversations. Saddie walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, and my breath caught in my throat. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger somehow, more like the girl I'd known in college. Hi, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Hi. For a moment, we just looked at each other. 22 years collapsed into nothing. I was 20 again, sitting across from the woman I'd planned to spend my life with. "You look good," she said finally. "Older, but good. You look exactly the same." She laughed, and the sound sent shivers down my spine. Liar. I have gray hairs and crow's feet and about 20 pounds I didn't have in college. I hadn't noticed. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her life after college, the graduate program in London, the years climbing the corporate ladder, the loneliness of success without someone to share it with. I told her about my marriage, my job, the quiet life I'd built that felt increasingly empty. "Do you remember what we used to talk about?" she asked as the afternoon light faded outside the windows. "Our 5-year plan, our 10-year plan. We had it all figured out." I remember. House with a white picket fence, 2 kids, a dog named Murphy. "You wanted to be a teacher back then. What happened?" I shrugged. "Life. When you left, I lost focus, switched majors, ended up in insurance. It's not a bad job, but it's not what I dreamed of doing." "And Amanda? How did you meet her?" I told her about the party, about the whirlwind romance, about how Amanda had seemed so confident and ambitious, everything I thought I wanted after years of drifting. "But she wasn't what you needed," Saddie said gently. "No, she wasn't." As we prepared to leave, Saddie reached across the table and took my hand. Her touch was electric, familiar despite the decades between us. "I know this is complicated," she said. "I know you're married, and I respect that. But I need you to know I never stopped loving you, not for a single day in 22 years. Saddie, I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I'm just asking you to think about what you want, not what's expected of you, not what's convenient, but what you actually want." That evening, I came home to find Amanda sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "How did it go?" she asked. I sat down across from her, accepting the glass she offered. "It was good. We talked. And I think we both know what's going to happen." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I lost you a long time ago, didn't I? I was just too selfish to see it." "Amanda, no, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, it's devastating. But I understand. You found each other again. After all these years, you found each other." We talked through the night, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing as we remembered the good times. By morning, we'd made our decision. Amanda filed for divorce the following week. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly amicable. Amanda had found a new job at a smaller firm, a step down from her previous position, but she seemed happier, more grounded. We split our assets fairly, sold the house, and somehow managed to part as friends. "I hope she makes you happy," Amanda said on the day we signed the final papers. "I hope she gives you everything I couldn't." "I hope you find someone who appreciates how amazing you are," I replied, "and who doesn't make you feel like you have to choose between love and ambition." 3 months later, Saddie and I had our second first date. She picked me up in a car that cost more than I made in a year, but she was nervous, actually nervous, as we drove to the restaurant. "I feel like I'm 18 again," she confessed, "like I'm about to pick you up for prom." "You never picked me up for prom. I borrowed my dad's truck and showed up at your house with a corsage that cost me 2 weeks of allowance. That corsage was beautiful. I kept it pressed in a book for years." The restaurant was elegant but not pretentious, the kind of place where we could talk without shouting over loud music or feeling underdressed. Over dinner, we filled in more gaps from the missing years, but mostly, we just enjoyed being together. "I have a confession," Saddie said over dessert. "I may have done some research before taking the CEO position." "What kind of research?" "The kind where I found out which investment firms operated in this city and made sure to schedule events that would require employee attendance." I stared at her. "You mean, I've been looking for you for years. When I finally tracked you down and discovered you lived here, I may have orchestrated a few things to increase the chances of running into you. You took a job just to find me? I took a job because it was a good opportunity, but I chose this city because you were here. The revelation should have been overwhelming, but instead, it felt like the missing piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Saddie had been searching for me with the same determination she'd brought to building her career. She'd never given up. What if I'd been happy? I asked. What if my marriage had been everything I'd dreamed of? Then I would have walked away. Your happiness was always more important to me than my own wants. 6 months later, I moved into Saddie's house, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs with, ironically, a white picket fence. It felt like coming home after a very long journey. We were unpacking boxes in what would become my office when Saddie found something that made her laugh. What is it? I asked. She held up a photo, the two of us at our college graduation, arms around each other, grinning at the camera like we owned the world. I have the same picture, she said. It's been on my nightstand for 22 years. Even when you were dating other people? Especially then, it was my reminder of what real love felt like. We hung the photo on the wall next to my desk, a testament to the power of second chances and the persistence of true love. A year later, Saddie proposed to me. She did it at the coffee shop where we'd had our reunion, getting down on one knee in front of the same table where we'd decided to rebuild our lives together. The ring was simple, elegant, nothing like the flashy diamond I'd given Amanda. I know this is unconventional, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. But I've waited 22 years to ask you this question. Will you marry me? I said yes before she'd finished asking. Our wedding was small, just family and close friends. Amanda sent a card wishing us well, which meant more to me than she probably knew. Dave from work was my best man, and Saddie's sister flew in from Seattle to be her maid of honor. As we exchanged vows, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this moment. The years of separation, the failed marriage, the chance encounter that had changed everything. Sometimes the universe has a plan that's bigger than our own understanding. I promise to love you, I said, looking into Saddie's eyes, to respect you, and to never take for granted the miracle of finding you again. I promise to cherish you, she replied, to support your dreams, and to never stop being grateful for second chances. After the ceremony, as we danced to the same song we'd danced to at our college formal, Saddie whispered in my ear, "So, about that 5-year plan we used to talk about." I laughed, spinning her around the dance floor. I think we're a little behind schedule. That's okay. We have the rest of our lives to catch up. 2 years later, we adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever mix we named Murphy. Saddie had remembered that detail from our college dreams, and she'd surprised me with him on our second wedding anniversary. Now we just need the kids, she said, watching Murphy chase a tennis ball around our backyard. About that, I said, pulling her close. I may have some news. She looked at me with curiosity that quickly turned to understanding. You mean, the adoption agency called this morning. There's a little girl, 3 years old, who needs a family. If we're interested, we can meet her next week. Saddie started crying, happy tears that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight. Are we ready for this? I thought about the question seriously. We'd been through so much: separation, heartbreak, divorce, rebuilding. We'd learned hard lessons about love, respect, and what it meant to be true partners. I think we're as ready as anyone can be. The little girl's name was Emma, and she had Saddie's dark hair and my stubborn chin. The moment we met her at the adoption center, I knew she was meant to be ours. She was shy at first, hiding behind her social worker, but Saddie got down on her level and started talking to her about the dollhouse in the corner. Within an hour, Emma was sitting in Saddie's lap, chattering about her favorite books, and asking if we really had a dog named Murphy. Can I see him? she asked with the kind of hope that breaks your heart and puts it back together at the same time. If you come home with us, you can see him every day, I said. Would you like that? Saddie added. Would you like to come home with us? Emma nodded solemnly, as if she understood the magnitude of the question. Will you be my mommy and daddy? If you'll have us, Saddie said, tears streaming down her face. The adoption was finalized 6 months later. Emma had adapted to our family with the resilience that children possess, and she'd wrapped both Saddie and me around her little finger completely. On the day the judge made it official, Emma wore a new dress and carried a bouquet of flowers she'd picked from our garden. After the ceremony, she looked up at me with serious eyes. Daddy, are you happy now? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean, sweetheart? Mommy Saddie says you were sad before, but now you're happy. Is that true? I looked around the courtroom at my new family, Saddie beaming with joy, Emma clutching her flowers, Murphy waiting patiently in the car outside. I thought about the journey that had brought us here, the pain and loss that had eventually led to something beautiful. Yes, baby girl. I'm very happy now. Good, she said matter-of-factly. I want you to stay happy. I will, I promised. We all will. That evening, we celebrated with dinner at Emma's favorite restaurant, a family pizza place with arcade games and terrible music. As I watched Saddie help Emma navigate the claw machine, trying to win a stuffed elephant that was clearly too big for the opening, I marveled at how different my life had become. 5 years ago, I'd been married to a woman who was embarrassed by me, living a life that felt increasingly hollow. Now I was married to my soulmate, father to an amazing little girl, and genuinely excited about the future for the first time in decades. Daddy, look! Emma had somehow managed to win the elephant, and she was holding it up triumphantly. I got him! That's amazing, Em. What are you going to name him? She considered this seriously. Murphy, too. So our Murphy has a friend. Saddie laughed, the sound filling me with warmth. I think that's perfect. As we drove home that night, Emma fell asleep in her car seat, clutching Murphy, too. Saddie reached over and took my hand. No regrets? She asked quietly. I thought about Amanda, about the years we'd spent growing apart, about the pain of divorce and the courage it had taken to start over. I thought about the road not taken, the life I might have lived if Saddie had never walked into that company dinner. None, I said, not a single one. Even about Amanda, about how things ended. Especially about Amanda. She deserved better than what we had, and so did I. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let go. Saddie squeezed my hand. I love you. I love you too, both of you. All three of us, she corrected, glancing back at Emma. We're a family now. Yes, I agreed, pulling into our driveway where the porch light was shining like a beacon. We're home. As I carried our sleeping daughter into the house, with Saddie and Murphy following behind us, I realized that sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. It had taken 22 years, a failed marriage, and a chance encounter at a company dinner, but I'd finally found my way back to where I belonged. The last thing I did before going to bed that night was look at our family photo on the nightstand. Saddie, Emma, Murphy, and me, all grinning at the camera like we owned the world. Next to it was that old college photo of Saddie and me, a reminder of how far we'd traveled to get back to each other. Some love stories have fairy tale endings, others have real ones. Ours had both, and I couldn't have asked for anything more perfect.